Hey, this is Cameron with iPropertyManagement.com, and today I want to do a quick walkthrough and review of RentSpree's tenant screening services. You may recognize RentSpree as one of the bigger names in the industry. They are well known for their comprehensive suite of property management resources and software. So first of all, you will go ahead and create a landlord account, and then once you log in, you're taken to this screen. You can click the Start Screening Request button, and then you're taken here. Now, this is interesting because you do have some flexibility here. You can choose to just send out a rental application, but of course we're interested in their tenant screening, so we'll add in credit report and score. I'm not sure why criminal background check and eviction related proceedings have an option to remove them because they're free. I think every landlord would just want to have that there to see what they get. Now, we get another piece of the puzzle here. It's $38 for the application fee for your applicants to pay. And that's kind of on the lower to middle end. Certainly not on the high end. We've seen much more expensive, but we've also seen cheaper than that. So then next we have this, another page with a lot of flexibility where we can choose to send an email or a text message application out to somebody. This is pretty neat. Most tenant screening services don't have the text message option. We can also send out a link to apply, or this is actually the first time I've seen this, where you can have the option to print screening handouts for a property. I'm going to show you what it looks like when you send an email to somebody. They're going to get this beautiful email, apply now. And then once they click apply now, they are taken to this process. Now, it's a very long process. In fact, when I was doing this yesterday, I found a screen that said to expect 30 to 60 minutes to fill out, which, I mean, that's a lot to expect an applicant to spend, especially if after 15 minutes they need to go do something else and then they don't come back to it, you are going to lose applications. So I'm not going to go through every step in the process, but what I will do is show you the interesting steps that are either kind of add to their case or detract from their case as a good tenant screening service. So first we click this button, and this is fascinating because here the applicant gets to put in their property rent price. Now, I didn't show you every step of the landlord sign-up process, but there isn't a place where they put in their property. Most other tenant screening services, that's the first thing you do is you put in your unit's information, and then you can send out invitations to apply, and then all the emails and everything says you are applying to XYZ property on Main Street. Here we don't get that. They are mostly applying to work with you as the landlord, which I think is interesting because usually applicants want to apply to a specific property. Later in the process, the landlord can put in the property information and then hook up the applicant and the application to that property, but that's not something that we're prompted to do up front. Okay, so now I've skipped ahead a little bit and I want to show you this emergency contact. Everything's pretty normal here. I will say here, this isn't too out of the ordinary, but they do require a street address, city, state, and zip code, which I guess that can make sense if something happens to your renter later on and you need to go to the emergency contact's house or you need to mail something, forward something. I get it, it does make sense, but we're going to see a pattern here as I show you some other parts of this application that ask for street address. Next, we're going to come to a credit information page. I've seen a few tenant screening services do this, and I don't understand why. They're asking for basically who does this applicant owe money to. Now, thankfully, it's optional, so they don't have to fill this out because once you see their credit report, you'll notice that all this information is automatically pulled in. And it can actually be really frustrating if an applicant believes that they need to fill this out, like let's say they miss the optional part, and they're like, crud, I have to go find the name of the bank, the account number, I don't know that off the top of my head, figure out my balance or monthly payment. Like that's all something that can trip up your applicants. Now, I made a point earlier about finding a street address. Here we're going to see on references, it's going to ask for your nearest relatives, and it's going to ask for a street address as well, and a city and a state. Now, I don't know about you, but if I needed to know my brother's information, I don't know his email off the top of my head. I don't know his street address off the top of my head. I know the city and the state. I don't know the zip code. I'd have to text him, call him, email him, whatever. It's just another step that makes this application a little bit too long. And then on the next page, in addition to your closest relative reference, they also want you to put in a personal reference, which I'm assuming they're hoping it's someone who's not a family member. But once again, we have to put in their occupation. It's required. Yeah, their street address is required. Their city is required. State required. Zip code required. So again, this is another person that all of your applicants have to reach out to verify all this information before they'll be able to continue in the application process. Okay, so we've gone ahead and we finished the parts of the generic application. Now we're going to move on to the actual screening request part of this. First, we're going to fill out or check this box for the agreement, and I'd like to receive a copy of any reports prepared. That is a fantastic feature that I always approve of. Next, we'll come to the standard information that it's going to ask so that it can pull your tenant screening reports. And that takes your applicant to the end of the process. Once they pay and submit, then you will receive an email notification that there are reports for you to look at. So here's a report that we paid for and generated for a real person. We just have screenshots here so that we could redact some important information because this is a real person's information. But here is what it looks like. So we notice that they use TransUnion, which is great. They do have this exact social security number match, which that's standard for pretty much all tenant screening services will pull that. Now, this is something that TransUnion does. They typically will give you a resident score instead of a credit score. A resident score it's basically a credit score, but only taking into account factors that are pertinent to a rental. The fact that it's TransUnion doing it and they have access to millions and millions of data points, you can rest assured that this information, that this number is actually going to be pretty darn accurate. In fact, probably even more accurate and pertinent for you than a credit score, but I know it can be a little tough to get past the mental barrier of not seeing a credit score there. Okay, and then we'll come down to address history. And then we'll come down here and we'll see a profile summary. There's trade lines, credit inquiries, collections, public records. And then pretty standard, we see a trade line summary. Here, if we look at total payment, we can see how much they're paying each month in debt payments, which can give us a debt to income number, which we always recommend over rent to income numbers. Scroll down here and we can see the individual trade lines this person has opened. This is a mortgage payment. We can see this person, how much they pay, the balance, and that they've been on time every single month. And then we come down here to see inquiries. These usually fall off after a couple of years. Next, we'll come down and see pretty basic criminal reports. Basically, no criminal records, eviction, no eviction records. Pretty standard. If they do have criminal record or eviction record, there'll be a couple of data points here that you can take a look at. Now, overall, RentSpree definitely has some pros and cons. The things that we like best about it were the very flexible application choices, the fact that they let you print out handouts for an open house, which I don't know how often that would be used, but I've never seen it before with other tenant screening services, so that sets them apart. I do like that the applicants can check a box to receive their own reports. Only a few tenant screening services do that. Then the $38 price is pretty good. Now, the downsides are that it's a lengthy application process, that they also ask for the creditor info where the credit report's going to pull it in anyway, so I don't know why they would bother making the applicant look that up. The fact that they want addresses for the references can really slow down the process and probably have you lose applicants. And then if you'll also notice as I went through these reports that they're pretty bare boned. You get the basics, you get the credit report, you get the eviction, you get the criminal, you get the SSN match, but you're also missing an income verification. You're missing anything to do with terrorist checks, sex offender checks. Does this person have a history of writing bad checks? Those are all things that many other tenant screening services offer, but we're not going to see here. So overall, you probably notice that their processes and their application design and their dashboards all look very beautiful. They're very easy to navigate and get through. I would recommend this service if someone is looking for those broader property management services that they can pair their tenant screening service with everything else that RentSpree has to offer, and that would make a lot of sense. However, if you're just looking for a tenant screening service and not interested in all their other property management resources, then you are probably better off going elsewhere. But again, I don't think you can go bad with them. Very good core service at a decent price. Okay, that's the end of my review. Thank you for listening and have a great day.